Hi, Christina. How are you doing today or tonight?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Well, it's morning for us here, so it's been very relaxing. So yeah, no, thank you for having me on the show.
Not a worries. Thank you much for your time. And we were just early before, we were just commenting about our different sort of backgrounds. You're definitely getting into the Christmas spirit back there, which is great to
Absolutely.
see.
Well,
And
yeah, no, in fairness, I think, just with the year that we've had, everyone has, I mean, I have friends who've had their Christmas decorations up since September, so I think I was kind of, relatively good in terms of only pulling it up about a week ago. So
yes, yes. I remember when I was a kid, I was always used to bugging my parents, going, "Oh, Mom, can we put the Christmas tree up? Can we put the lights up?" And look, this was like November, but oh my God, September! Wow, that's
Yeah,
really
well, I think just with the way things are, but like Christmas was always a huge thing for us. I mean, my mum and dad, in fairness to them, because I have a brother as well, we always kind of had a big Christmas, whether that was with family or with friends, or they always made a big deal to kind of to make it special. So I suppose it's amazing how that kind of nurture has fed into then how I see Christmas, and so it's always a case where I'm like, we have to have a tree and we have to have this and this and this, and so it's yeah, it's I know some people it's not for everyone, and I can understand that for their own personal reasons, but for me,
yes.
absolutely love it. So
Well, you wouldn't even think it was Christmas here in Shanghai.
really,
They just think it's another day. They have different religions, different beliefs.
oh God,
Some of the foreigners will celebrate it, but
yeah,
it's all about their Chinese New Year here. So
yeah.
they're gearing up for their big spring festival, and that's their big holiday. So 2 weeks. So it's just very interesting to see how they react to. For most businesses, it's not even a
Yeah.
public holiday. They'll have
Yeah.
a holiday first, but for Christmas Day,
Yeah.
it's a
I,
Friday.
I always think that's amazing because
Yeah.
in a way, because the world has almost become so westernized in terms of, kind of everything that they're embracing, it's quite nice to know that they still stick with certain traditions and that they're not kind of fed into that, so that they
Yes.
say they have, their kind of Chinese New Year, and then, other places have their own kind of little things. So I kind of like that. I mean, I
Yeah,
suppose
it's good.
bad for
It
someone
is.
like you.
And to see it in person, like in like February, it's crazy. Like
Mhm.
they're flying everywhere to go back to the one time of the year they go back to see their family. So anyway, let's let's get back on track. So again, thank you for your time. We're a week out before Christmas, so appreciate you coming on. It's been a little, can we do it this time? Can we do it that time? So it's good to finally get on track. So, Christina, first question I ask to everybody: how are you doing in the pandemic? Are you and your family sort of staying safe? And I can see that it hasn't really affected your work. I mean, you've got some movie credits for 2020, so obviously, you have been able to work. So tell us how you've adapted.
Yeah. How have I adapted? Well, I suppose like a lot of people, there isn't really a choice. You either sink or swim. And I think in terms of what my attitude has been to this, I will admit at the beginning it very much was overwhelming. It was like everyone else, kind of a new, unexpected thing to happen. So I think it was a matter of trying to kind of adjust and, as you say, adapt. But luckily, kind of, I am in a situation where I have a lot of support and love around me, so that kind of made things a hell of a lot easier. So, I suppose as it stands, we're all safe, touch wood, and I love doing that. I see people do it, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, get over it." I'm like, "No, it's actually really cool." But yeah, no,
It's good to
everyone is
go
safe.
international now. The whole touch wood thing.
It is, I mean, in a way, it's one of the few things that we're actually allowed to touch, So, I mean,
Yeah,
kind of
that's true.
expressions and stuff like
That's
that.
true.
So,
Yeah, being
yeah.
being safe there.
Well, well. So yeah, no, thankfully we're all safe and well, and we're still sane, which is a miracle, because I think definitely with what we've been put through, and also the threat of what's to come, I think definitely it's been pretty challenging, but we're hanging in there.
That's great. And tell us about Ireland, like in general. Did they shut down in this period, or are they still sort of hanging in there?
Ireland are they're probably one of the kind of leading examples in terms of what things have been happening. So they've been they're very cautious in terms of what they're doing, I think, because I mean, like everywhere, nobody really knows what is the answer. And I think they're playing it more safe than sorry. So we had the lockdown in March, and then we came out of that, and then there was the different stages that they had, and then to top that all off, there was kind of a switch in government. So,
dear.
Yeah, there was a lot happening, really, where people felt a little bit kind of like the rug was swept underneath them. So, but we've managed really well, because, as you know, Irish people we're troopers. We kind of put the best foot forward in a difficult situation. So, as it stands now, we're doing a kind of a regulated kind of normality, which is kind of, it's something anyway, you know. Whereas I know a lot of countries have, unfortunately, been put into lockdown, very strict lockdown. So at least we do have a little bit of luxury. But you know, I think we can't really wallow in self-pity, because at the end of the day, we just have to get through this.
Yeah,
and,
that's
do
right.
it the best way. So yeah.
Yeah, 2020. Hey, who would have thought in this time?
You know, the new norm. Yeah.
And talking about that, I was having a look at your Instagram, and I saw, a couple of messages about, mental health. And, so have you sort of, how have you sort of adapted, like, in this period? Like we said, you did 2 films, was it? Credited film?
Well, no, actually, the films that are kind of doing the rounds are kind of
from last year.
Yeah, from previous.
Right.
They're
right.
kind of hitting at the moment, so it's that's a really big positive in terms of kind of to get things out there and to kind of have almost like a positive kind of focus, you know.
Yeah.
The mental health things, I suppose, like there is a group that I run on Facebook called COVID Sports Stress Relief 19.
Right.
Which was a big focus for me, where again, I kind of felt just when we were going into the very first lockdown, I'm not going to lie, it was a really difficult time for me. I felt really overwhelmed and quite scared in terms of what was happening, you know.
Unknown.
I think that there was a point where I kind of felt I was getting into a low kind of a place, and I said, you know what, I need to stop this and I need to find something to do. And one of those things was to kind of, it was a bit of a wake-up call, because I reached out to friends and they were kind of saying, oh my God, I'm really scared as well, and I don't know what's happening. And, you know, it's not like it's kind of, you know, you have a bad patch. This is a world pandemic. Everyone is going through it. So I kind of channeled that kind of idea in terms of that everyone is kind of struggling with this. So I created this group on Facebook, and it's just grown. And the idea behind it is to kind of encourage positivity and to be kind of a support crutch for anyone who feels that they're feeling overwhelmed, or they just are having a bad day, or they feel that they're a little bit alone. So we post kind of funny memes, or we have meditation, we have, you know, kind of different skills and stuff. So it's been brilliant, because we have people from all around the world. So they're kind of sharing their feelings or their experiences, but we kind of keep it positive, and we kind of keep away from any facts or any of that kind of stuff, just so that's not the focus. So, but it's done really well, and it's still going 9 months later. So
that's
got a great following. Yeah.
That's really, really cool, Christina. I love how positive people, and you know what? It's been funny. It's been like a trend with the Irish people that I've had on the podcast. It's all about positivity and helping one another. I don't know. It's just maybe just the people that I've interviewed from Ireland, but it just seems to be they're all just trying to help the next person. Not just trying to help themselves, but other people. I think it's great and more
We've
people
big
should.
hearts, I think.
That's right.
We're kind of a funny fish in terms of, we'd, go to a pub and 10 minutes later, a stranger would be your best friend. It just, it's kind of one of those things. We do have a beautiful, and I love that about Irish people in particular now. I mean, loads of people, but in particularly Irish people, I notice that they just are so warm and kind of caring and thoughtful in that way. Like, I know definitely during this period, like I've noticed people have everywhere globally actually have kind of come together to try and kind of be more kind of supportive. But with Irish people, they always seem to have that kind of warmth that they just go, look, if you ever need anything, even if it's a cup of sugar or whatever, they're always there trying to kind of just be there. And I love that about them. They're just so warm.
That's amazing. And you know what? I've never actually been there yet. It's definitely on my list.
And you've got an Irish surname.
I know. We've got a little castle there, and my dad's done all the history and like go back to centuries, and we got taken over
from. Where just the kind of line?
Enniskillen.
Enniskillen.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
I'll get over there. It's just.
Oh, you have to when things
give me a vaccine, and I'll get the next flight to Ireland.
Well, it will be one hell of a party. I think when if and when the time comes that we're given the green light that it's okay to kind of even just give a hug to someone, I think it's going to be the most amazing kind of thing that people relief, because I think for everyone it's just been so alien, because it goes against our nature.
Yes,
I know when the first lockdown finished and I was out with a friend like that, we were allowed to go for a walk but within kind of distance, and it's something I always hug my friends, and it was so weird not to be able to do that. The physical contact, just to and it's this like air pump thing going on, and it's like, how are you doing? We're gonna support you from a distance. It just feels so strange, So I think the sooner the better that things get a little bit easier. But it is it's becoming more copable.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of coming to Ireland, have you been to Australia?
No, and it's kind of a battle of minds, because I would love to go, but I have a massive fear of spiders.
Oh, come on! It's just like the National Geographic. They only see the bad things,
I know, and it's so stupid because I honestly I would love to go. I have family who are in Perth and Tasmania.
Oh, beautiful.
And, and they're always like, oh, come over and stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm kind of like Googling what areas have the biggest spiders, or, kind of, because bug spray is a big thing over there. So I know it's silly, and I will. I think it's on a bucket list to go over at some point.
Come to Australia. But let's go to you now. You're the person. You're my guest on the program, and we've talked for 20 minutes, and not about your career. So, actor, musician, lover of animals.
Oh, I love
let's go back. Let's go back to the start.
Okay.
So, whereabouts in Ireland did you grow up in?
So I grew up in Dublin, in a place called Cabra, which is kind of North Dublin, the best part. Grew up there. Did the primary and secondary school. I went to an all-Irish.
Did you have a big family there in Northern Dublin?
I think Dad hails from Tipperary, and Mum is a Dub girl. So Dad has a big side of kind of Tipperary clan, and then Mum has another biggish kind of family on the Dublin side. So we kind of have the best of both worlds, where we have kind of the city Jackeens, and then we have kind of the more western side of Ireland as well. So it's good. They're a great family, and we're very close.
Right. Sorry. Were your mum and your father, were they musicians? Were they stage performers? How did you get involved with this?
Dad is an appreciator of music.
Right.
I did get him a tin whistle one year, but we were we're still waiting on that. But mum was primarily the musician. Her side of the family is very musical. So she mainly did piano. She was very involved kind of in playing, and then teaching. She's an amazing teacher. So her and her sisters as well. So I think from an early age, it was a case where that was kind of around, and whatever way it worked out, I seemed to kind of show potential. So they got me into playing the piano and the violin quite early, and kind of it built up from there, and we figured out that I was actually quite good, and kind of
did you have a preference? Did you have a preference in your instruments, and what was more harder to learn, in your opinion?
I don't know, because I kind of felt they were very equal. I mean, I was probably a little bit more natural at the violin, for whatever reason. But I mean, both were very equal. I kind of grew up doing the competitions and touring with both of them. So, yeah, and it's funny kind of if you fast forward to in terms of teaching, because I do a bit of teaching. I think they're just very different instruments, and also very subjective in terms of the person. So I actually couldn't pick one, to be honest. Yeah. So
they're very difficult. You said that it was very easy to develop. Playing ability. So when did you sort of start doing this? When did you sort of pick up the violin or start playing the piano? What age were you doing?
I think piano was probably about the age of 5, 6. Because mum kind of started teaching me from home, and then the violin was probably about 7 or 8, I think. And I was actually at mass, and there was this girl on the altar who was playing the violin, because I'd never heard the violin. I'd never been really around it, because piano was mainly the instrument that everyone else was doing. And there was a girl playing the violin, and I just kind of looked at, I mean, she tells me the story, my mum, but I looked at the girl playing the violin, and I said, I want to do that,
Right.
So, and mum being, mum, she kind of was like, okay, well, let's see what happens. And very quickly, just kind of like a duck to water, it just happened. So
right.
Yeah, it just took over.
There you go. The rest is history.
Yeah.
So you're playing along, and you said that you found that you had an ability. So where did you start? Was it your mum that was like pushing you to sort of perform live, in front of people, or was it you that wanted to do it?
I think there was it was an imbalance between me enjoying the attention because I was good at something, and people were going, oh my God, you're so good,
Yes.
And then there was my mum recognizing that I actually had something here and that I could, actually do really well. So I think it was a balance between those two. And then it kind of just evolved, because I kind of got involved then in the Royal Irish Academy of Music in Dublin. And that's where I started doing my studies, and then touring with the different orchestras and kind of solo as well.
Whoa! Don't skip over that. Let's talk about that. Amazing achievement. I want to know all about this. How you become a part of it. What the auditions were like, and tell us about this. This is an amazing achievement.
So when I got into the academy, it was very kind of concentrated in terms of classical music, and I was doing both. I was doing both piano and violin, and I think through kind of the community, the thing to do was audition for orchestras and audition for national orchestras or whatever you could do. So there was kind of the local orchestra, and then there was the kind of the bigger scaled ones. So I auditioned for the bigger scale ones because, that's kind of what everyone else was doing.
Yeah, that's right.
And got in, and then ended up kind of getting very, very high kind of seating as well in that. But it was a very, very, what's the word? Like it took a lot out of me in terms of like, it wasn't quite a normal situation, because I was practicing a couple of hours a day before school or after school, in terms of sleepovers or in terms of kind of social things that normal kids would do. I suppose I was limited because this was my life. You know, I might be, you know, practicing. Well, I would definitely was practicing, even though I wasn't massively keen on it, but it had to be done. And then there might be, you know, where I had tours where, you know, that was it. I was away, or, you know, I had to, that was kind of my life, you know.
So how old were you when you started touring?
I suppose it's the different orchestras, like kind of nationally, probably from about the age of 9 or 10. Yeah.
Now, I mean, it was very early.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because you look back at it and you just I like talking to you or anyone else, you know, it was like, oh yeah, that's kind of what I did, you know, I just went off with an orchestra or whatever, and they're like, what? What about school? What about, you know, what about all of this kind of normal stuff? And I'm like, yeah, but like that's just the way my life was. I mean, I didn't even give it a second thought because it was something I really enjoyed doing, and there was a social aspect of it because obviously all of these other talented kids were were doing the same thing. So you kind of, you know, you'd make friends, and you know, you'd have your lunch breaks after 6 hours rehearsal where you kind of sit down, you have your tea and your biscuits and stuff. Wow. I know, but like it's just I don't know. It's so weird to say.
Yeah, you didn't know anything else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I suppose it was kind of what age I was, teenager when I got into the oh god, what they call it, the International Association of Youth Orchestras, which is the national kind of.
London?
No, London was college. So this was
right. Okay, sorry. Yeah. We're jumping ahead here. Sorry.
So that was kind of a big thing to kind of get into, because that kind of separated the men from the boys a little bit.
Yes.
And that's when I kind of also realized that this is something I would be quite interested in taking quite seriously. And I suppose through my secondary school, it was a case where I was doing a lot of competitions. I was building up, you know, kind of the technique, the kind of mindset, the stamina, kind of everything that would be involved in doing that. So it came to kind of making a decision in terms of what would happen after school. And I suppose it was kind of a case of, well, what's the best that I can do, you know, because I would be quite ambitious. So I was like, well, what can I achieve, you know? And there was either I stay in Ireland or I go abroad.
Right.
And I kind of said, you know what, I just really want to see, is it possible, you know, to do? So I kind of said to my parents, look, I want to audition for England. I want to audition for the top schools there. You know, I want to kind of just give myself the best chance. And they didn't even think twice. They were like, absolutely, whatever you want. You know, I mean, we'll support you no matter what. So Mum at the time, I mean, because she's an amazing woman, she's a powerhouse, she's incredible. She was actually in college at the time doing an undergrad in music.
Wow. God,
yeah, I mean,
that's fantastic.
So my dad actually went over with me to do the auditions, and I was terrified. I mean, I kind of look back now and I go, geez, I had some serious guts, you know. But we went over and I had, you know, 3 different auditions for the Royal College of Music, Royal Northern in Manchester. Then I had the College of Music in England, and then I had the.
How strict were they, like, with the auditions?
Oh my God, they were brutal. Jesus,
yeah.
I mean, it was like a full day each.
You know, wow.
They went through, like, you had your prepared pieces, then they did your kind of your oral test, which is to check, you know, your kind of pitch in terms of your comprehension, in terms of your rhythm, in terms of all of that. Then you had your 3-hour paper exam. Then you had your, you know, your separate audition. You had your dictation. It was pretty full on, and it was. Yeah, I mean, I kind of going into it, I suppose I was just kind of going, well, this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
And in a way, having Dad with me was amazing, because he's a tip man from, you know, the country, you know, and he because he wasn't as involved, you know, when I was with him, I didn't have to think about it. So like if I had a break from doing this, you know, 3-hour paper, we'd go off to the pub and, you know, we'd have some dinner, and that's when you could smoke in pubs, which I also thought was the coolest thing ever. Not that it was just so kind of, you know, to this 18-year-old kind of going, oh my God, this is deadly, you know. We'd sit in the pub, and then I'd have to go back and do another audition or whatever, you know. It will always stick with me, that kind of part. And then I suppose there was the leaving cert, because the colleges in England they'd all offered me a place, which I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And so there was the two things. One was to decide which one I would go to, and then the second thing was to get the points, because obviously they were very particular about what grades you got to get in. And I was quite casual as a student. I kind of took things for granted because I suppose some things came very naturally to me. I was kind of like, I'll figure it out, you know. So, but I did, in fairness, knuckle down, and I got the results, and then made the decision to go to the Royal Academy of Music. So.
There's so many questions I want to ask. They're just like whistling by my forehead when you say this. I want to ask about what pressures that you had there. Like, you were saying that you were doing 6-hour, rehearsals and tryouts, and I was a bit similar with sporting, with cricket and baseball. So how did you adapt with that? With having friends, like wanting to go shopping, or you know what I mean? Go to the movies, go to the bar. How did you sort of deal with that going through, growing up?
I suppose there was a few things. The first thing was that I had moved away from home and that I was living in England now. So right. I didn't know anyone going over.
Right.
And that was a little bit tricky, because I really am a home bird at the end of the day. I just, there's something about Ireland and about my family and friends, which I'm really lucky to have, and I'm blessed for that. So I suppose it was a very big changing point in my life, where I was suddenly out on my own, and then I was also being thrown into one of the top schools in the world for music. Right. And there was a lot of pressure, because I was in with people from all over the world, and all kind of, these are like huge beasts in music already who've won every competition under the sun, So even to be in that kind of league was quite overwhelming, because suddenly I'm this little Irish girl coming in going, hey guys, I can play a little bit, So, I suppose there was an element of that where I was going into it kind of just going, right, I want to prove that I can do this. And there was an element of that back home, and everyone was rooting for me. So I suppose I very quickly kind of realized that there was a lot more work in a way that I needed to do to kind of keep up with this, because I was looking at, some of the Chinese in particular, who from the age of 3, were practicing 10 hours a day, whereas I was kind of thrown in an hour here or there or whatever, like that was just their nature, whereas, I suppose with me, there was a more kind of, if you want to do it, you can do it. There was a bit of pressure, but it wasn't kind of an absolute, you have to do this to kind of impress or make someone proud. So in terms of the social life, I suppose it was mainly revolved around music, because you didn't really have time to make friends outside of that. Whether it was
community. You would have had
it was a bubble. It was very definitely like that was your eat, sleeping, breathing music, and all of your friends played music, and all of your friends you were also competing against, because, with orchestra, and you'd have auditions every week, you'd have master classes practically every day, you'd have lessons every day. Your orchestra rehearsals would be 8 to 10 hours, depending on the conductor that you were working with. So, that was your life. And then on top of that, you had your academics, which there was no fails allowed. So there was so much going on that just kind of, and then on top of that, not having your kind of potato crisp sandwiches or, the little comforts from home. But it was a huge growing point, because I learned a hell of a lot about myself in terms of what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go, and just figure out a bit of life, for myself.
Now tell me, during these periods, obviously orchestra, that sort of classical music would be your favorite, but tell me what music were you listening to besides that, or was it just purely what you were playing?
They had a student bar.
All right.
That you go to for a drink after, because if you're doing 8 to 10 hour stints of orchestra, you're pretty wrecked, but you're also wired at the end of it. So, You know, where you're, the other thing with music that people don't realize is you're not talking. So you're spending that amount of time rehearsing and you're actually not talking. You're playing, you're working out. So, I mean, it's kind of funny. So the first thing you want to do is, you know, have a pint or, you know, just talk or get it out.
Yes.
You know, just be normal. So we used to go to a student bar, and that's when they'd have all the cool like pop hits and all that stuff, and you kind of let your hair down a bit, sometimes too much. But that was all part of it.
Yeah.
So I suppose again, music influence was nearly always classical because you didn't really get time to do anything else. You know, I know some people used kind of music kind of as a relaxing kind of a thing, but for me, because you're just kind of so involved in it, it's very hard. It's almost like it's kind of your job that you know you're when you're taking time out, that's not what you're going to be turning to, you know.
Absolutely. And like in terms of playing, like now, do you still, you know, perform live? Well, maybe not this year, but you know, in previous years before, is it just a hobby now, or are you still doing it professionally? You said before that you were teaching, but are you actually going out and performing with orchestras, or, you know, is that sort of that career sort of ended?
I think when I had finished London, I made the decision to come back to Ireland to do a master's for a few different reasons. And London kind of was a very cutthroat situation where, particularly coming towards because it was 4 years, it was a 4-year degree, coming towards the end, it got quite competitive, and it kind of showed that really ruthless side of the profession.
Right.
And
well, tell us. Sorry to cut you off, Christina. Tell us a little bit about moving to London. I mean, it's not, you know, coming from Ireland, you know, to London. It's a bit of a change, right?
It was. I mean, it's what I would imagine kind of, you know, a small town country girl moving to Dublin, you know, or kind of someone moving to New York, or in your case, you know, like Australia. It's a huge change to your system, and it was definitely kind of a wow kind of thing.
Yes.
Now, I was as a person, I don't think I could be that kind of person who just sits in a college or sits in a cottage in the middle of nowhere and just lives her life, you know. It was never my thing, you know, so I always wanted to be involved in kind of a busy kind of a lifestyle. So I mean, it suited me quite well because coming into that, I was exposed to a lot of different cultures, a lot of different foods, a lot of different languages, ways of life. Like it was amazing, because in a way Ireland would be a little bit behind in terms of that, whereas London was suddenly this big, bright, shiny new kind of thing.
Multicultural.
Oh my God, this is deadly. Like I was eating, you know, noodles and sushi. I very quickly fell in love with sushi. I was like, oh my God, this stuff is amazing. And I went like on a massive OD on that for ages. I was like, this is deadly, you know. Whereas like Ireland I think it's only in the last couple of years they've even looked at that, and still people who don't even know what it is. So yeah, in terms of that, I made some really amazing friends from different countries who taught me so much in terms of their background and their way of life. So I think it's shaped so much of me because I've had that exposure and that kind of being able to mingle with people, that it's made me a more rounded person in general, you know.
Do you have a story that you look back on, you know, touring with the orchestra, that sort of sticks out in your mind from this period?
I'm trying to think. Was there any? I remember particularly with let me see, New York. We played in Carnegie Hall actually.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a big one where.
You're not going to talk about traveling to New York with the orchestra? Come on.
Yeah, we also played in the Albert Hall with Elton John.
Wow. Come on, this is your time. This is your time. Come on.
There's an X Factor as well. There's a few things, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, the Carnegie Hall was a big one, because when we arrived in New York, I was, what age was I now? This was my master's, so I would have been about 22, 23, and we were with the chamber orchestra from the Royal Irish Academy of Music. And we were touring Washington and New York, and where else did we tour? Did we go to San Francisco that year as well? I think we did. And yeah, that was a moment where when we went and we walked on stage in Carnegie Hall, I was like, that's it, that's deadly, that's so cool. That is like, I can say, you know, if there's nothing else I've done in my life, yeah, played here. That's cool.
Wow.
That was really cool.
Were any of your performances recorded? Like, can you go into YouTube and
Jesus, I don't know.
check them out? I want to check them out now. Come on.
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, they're probably somewhere. I know, obviously, well, with X Factor, I worked on X Factor in 2010, so that was with the whole One Direction and all those guys. That was that.
Wait,
year.
Stop. What? Let's rewind. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm finding out all this information. I nothing about this. Come
on.
One Direction. Come on. One of the biggest pop bands, whether you love them or hate them.
Yeah.
That's a story to tell. Tell us about this. How did it all happen?
So we had done a gig with the Academy in London with Elton John in the Albert Hall, and
just Elton John, just Elton John, yeah, random dude, you know. This is, you know.
And obviously we did something right. So the manager had obviously, there was some link, had gotten in touch and said, right, well, we want to use similar people for the X Factor. As you know, there's really kind of cool people at the back who kind of play the violin, but they don't play the violin, which is the thing that I kind of found out, but you probably shouldn't say that, but anyway, whatever. So yeah, they kind of said, so we got this email to say, would you be interested in being involved in the X Factor? And I was like, oh my God, this is deadly. Yes. So rocked up to Wembley Studios, and they kind of like did our hair and our makeup and fitted us for costumes, and they had booked us for the season as well, which was deadly. So it meant we were kind of, that was our gig. So we were working kind of in the backing tracks, and then obviously on stage when the acts were performing. So it was kind of a surreal thing, because you're kind of going through your academic year and you're doing your studies and you're doing your gigs and you're doing all your classical side of things, and then, you know, you're all your lessons and you're rehearsing all the time, and then you're suddenly kind of being brought into this different world, which is X Factor and TV and pop stars and fame and all this kind of stuff. And you're like just walking around. I remember the first time I saw One Direction. And they were kids to me, like they were teenagers, because I was kind of looking at these kids, you know, and they're walking, and they were lovely people. Who else? Matt Cardle was there, Rebecca Ferguson was that year, and then of course there was Simon Cowell, Cheryl Cole, Danny Minogue, and Louis Walsh.
Danny.
Yeah, she was so cool. She was so lovely. Actually, out of all of them, I think I got on the best with her.
Right.
Because she was very kind of quirky. She had similar sense of humor.
Yes.
And she was, I mean, they were all so lovely. Like, it's so kind of, when the cameras are off and when everything, you know, we're just doing a job, you know.
It is human beings, right?
So you're sitting there in the cafeteria having, you know, a couple, well, they weren't having chips. They're probably having a salad. But, you know, you're sitting there having your food. And they're there just chatting to you, and you're like, oh my God, I'm actually like, you know, but you kind of drop that very quick, because you go, you know, everyone's just doing their job. So that was kind of cool. Yeah, when I look back on it now.
Now, talking about a professional person that's been in an orchestra and you've studied music and all that, and then all of a sudden you've got to do these pop songs and with a sheet of paper. So do you look at this music and go, this is easy, or was it, you know?
Well, I mean, the one thing about it was that you had probably about 10 minutes to learn this off by heart.
Right.
They literally threw you in a room and said, right, you've 10 minutes to learn this, and then figure out how you're going to play this and what you're going to do. So you're kind of hoping that you knew the song, because if you didn't, quickly, you know.
Yes.
So that kind of side of it was harder. Like, if it was a simple case where you could have the music in front of you and play it, like, it would have been, geez, you could do it in your sleep. But there was the added kind of pressure of very quickly having to adjust. And I mean, it was like the acts as well. Like, they really didn't get a lot of heads up to do that. So I think that was a little bit challenging, you know. And then also they threw you into kind of these very salubrious and kind of slightly uncomfortable costumes. And like there was one case where they had me in like 7-inch stiletto heels, standing like on this really awkward step thing while playing the violin and pretending to, you know, be totally comfortable
happy.
with this.
Yeah.
So I mean, it wasn't quite as straightforward as just, oh yeah, just play the violin in the background, you'd be grand. Like there was a little bit of choreography, you know, going on. And then we had oh god, what's his name? Brian. Is it Brian Friel? I think his name is. Yeah, sorry, Brian. Who was kind of saying, oh well, I think we could, you know, get them to turn around while they play and then like stand on one leg and kind of sway and stuff. And we're kind of going, what? Like this most awkward thing for like a classically trained.
Let's do a handstand while we're
there.
Yeah,
or just hold a bow while you play. You know, just do one hand. Like, and whereas, you know, you're playing these symphonies by, you know, Beethoven and Mozart, you know, in an orchestra with this kind of particular way about it, you know, and then you're kind of being asked to do all this. It's just it was mad, but it was a lot of fun.
So tell us about that. Like, I'm always interested to ask, you know, people that have been on there or been contestants, what did you think of X Factor before you went on there, and what do you think about it now?
I loved X Factor. I mean, I grew up with X Factor in terms of kind of the contestants. I always loved that kind of humor side of it, you know, where like judges would be laughing, or, you know, someone would come on who maybe had an idea of how they wanted to perform as opposed to how necessarily it might kind of turn out. So me and Mum used to sit down and watch, and we'd have a great time. So I suppose that kind of element of it was always so much fun. And then when we kind of went on to do it, you definitely got a sense of that it's a business, that it's you know, it's very mechanical in how it works, and, you know, like from kind of backstage to cameras to kind of the program in terms of like, I mean, because they did a couple of takes obviously with Dermot doing the presenting, and then you have the audience as well, which is being cued. You kind of just see how it all functions.
Yes.
It didn't take away, because I mean I had watched it afterwards, but it definitely gave you an insight in terms of how it all works.
Yes. Was it all live, or was it pre-recorded?
No, it's all live. It's all live. Yeah, which was another thing I thought was really impressive in a way, because everything was planned. Everything from if you know, this happened or this happened, they instantly were on it. You know, they were able to figure it out and see what's the best way to recover as quickly as possible. Like, no, I have to say, like, it's an amazing thing that they did. And any TV show, and having gotten into then that kind of side of things, it kind of almost introduced me to that world a little bit, to kind of to see what it's about.
What an amazing story. And I had not written that down on my sheet of paper. So thank you. See what happens when you're just sort of talking, and that's great. So sorry, you missed my question. Did you get to meet Sir Elton?
I did, and I remember the first time we met him. We were doing the rehearsal we were doing a charity gig.
So what was it for? Was it for his actual song, or was it just a live performance?
It was actually to do with the Academy, because he actually went to the Academy, the Royal Academy. Right. So he was kind of doing like a collaboration with that, and I think they were doing a fundraiser as well for something, and charity, and like that. There was a few people picked to perform alongside him. So of course we were warned, and his partner was kind of there, and he was saying, you know, don't approach him or don't ask him questions and all this kind of stuff. And we were like, okay. So we were on stage, and he came in, and he was wearing a black Adidas tracksuit with pink feathered earrings and sunglasses. And I remember kind of going, is that it? You know, just about, because he was so normal, and he was so down to earth, and there was no kind of like, there's other people I've met and they've been very kind of, oh, you know, this is who I am, but he was so kind of like, hi guys, you know, we're going to do this together. And, you know, he sat down at the piano, and he was like, so where do you want to start and stuff. And he was just so kind of and he was lovely. He was really nice. And then we went to an after party show with him, and the green room,
Joy.
like that. He was just so nice, and he was such a lovely man and so talented. Like, I mean, he's unbelievable. I've so much respect.
I don't. Did you watch the movie that came out? Was it last year?
I did.
What did you think of that?
Yeah, I didn't know much about him. It's funny, like, because it was similar to Bohemian Rhapsody. You know,
yes.
It's amazing. It's almost, and then you wonder how much is true to life. You know, because
that's right.
Things.
That's...
But I thought it was really interesting. You know, it was more kind of his later life that I would have kind of known a little bit more about. So it was really interesting to see his journey. But he's an amazing man. I've a lot of respect for him.
I would have loved to seen an actual documentary. I know it was like a musical, and I was playing all of these songs in the show. But that was a great movie. And Bohemian Rhapsody, wow, they did a great job. Release it straight away. They weren't even going to play it, and then it won best actor in the movie. It won all these awards, and then all of a sudden the pressure was on. So they got the movie, and China's very strict with the sort of PG. They only want PG. They don't want M. They don't want. So they cut apparently like 8 or 9 minutes out of the movie, like obviously with Freddie's sort of sexuality and the drugs and alcohol and blah 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 blah. But yeah, it's just very very interesting. And you get into a taxi and they're playing Queen, like they're a brand new band, and people here are just like, wow, the Queen band, they're great. This new band, Queen, it's just crazy. Like they never heard of them. So yeah, it's just very very interesting. So while we're on the topic of celebrities, who else have you collaborated with? Like I'm sure many celebrities have come in and wanted to have the orchestra a part of their sort of like their music, their CDs, their live performances. So tell us just off the top of your head, who have you sort of...
They were the kind of main ones that we worked with. There would have been a lot of kind of recordings used. I mean, I know there was I worked with Stephen Rennicks on the music for Room. It's a film, an Irish movie. We did a lot of the backing tracks for that. I think it was more, again, that was kind of the side parts that we did as opposed to a lot of the classical stuff. So it was more just little things that we would have done. Like, I mean, we've loads of celebrities in terms of the classical world, but in terms of kind of pop thing, it was more, they were kind of the main things.
Right.
Yeah, did a lot of kind of that stuff.
Now the one thing, because I've been in rock bands, hard rock bands, playing guitar, and now here in Shanghai I'm playing drums. And I always respect, it doesn't matter what instrument it is, doesn't what music it is, I always respect talented performers playing their instrument or singing or however they do it. And I got convinced, when I just finished high school, to go and watch the Sydney Symphony play Mozart, and they had opera singers, and I was like, Craig, do you want to come? And I was like, it's not my thing. Metallica played with the symphony, and that was good, but okay, why not? And I got there really early because I wanted to just see how it all worked. I'd never been there before, and I was amazed. They tuned for an hour, maybe an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, just tuning up, and like the conductor went, "You up the back? Yeah, you're out of tune.
Yeah,
tune up." I could not believe that the ear of the conductor up the back was, this much out. And then they performed for like an hour and a half, and without a beat, no, very limited breaks in between the songs. I was just blown away. So since that night, I've had a much respect for orchestras in general. And when I went back there last year, I took a friend back to Australia. We went to the Sydney Opera House, and they had the keyboardist or the pianist right up the top in the room playing. Oh, it was amazing. It was just really, really cool. So I have gained a lot of respect for, instead of listening to guitar players and, like now, do you have music that you listen to now, and has it changed musically for you?
In terms of what I listen to, or in terms of what I mean, I suppose when you're that immersed in something,
stick with it.
You find it very hard to just sit back and enjoy it, because you're hearing all the cues, or you're hearing how someone's plays something, or whether they play it right or not, or so you're kind of constantly analyzing it, which is a little bit tricky, because it is a little bit upsetting, because you just sometimes want to go, and that's why I love film music, because I'm able to do that. Classical music, there would always be a case where if I go to concert now, if it's executed brilliantly, of course I'm like, oh, that's amazing,
but you did that wrong. You could have done that better.
There is an aspect of that that's really annoying, because you just you want to go, and I always respect the inside kind of circle, I suppose, because anyone who has played an instrument knows how difficult it is to do, and how difficult it is to do well. So I suppose in terms of that, I haven't lost that, which is kind of something I would have loved to kind of just put to bed and said, right, I'm not going to be a classical music anymore, so I can listen to music again. Yes. But you never lose that, because I suppose growing up with that and kind of being concentrated, and that, I suppose that was one of the other reasons that I kind of took a step back from music, because I did feel that it was becoming too concentrated and too much about kind of doing well, or kind of rising to meet the bar or the standard. Yes. I just wasn't enjoying it in the same way. I didn't want to lose my complete love for music by ruining that. So I kind of said, I'm gonna take a step back from that and park that, and then look into another side of self-expression or arts, which then of course brought me into acting. So